I'm not really interested in talking about Gabby Petito anymore. I'm interested in talking about people's opinions on Brian Laundrie's parents because I'm finding some of this to be weird commentary. So here's where I'm going to start, right? I'm going to give you guys a brief, and I mean brief, summary of how, the situation and how we ended up where we are now, right? Spoiler alert, although it feels weird saying that because this ain't a show. Brian Laundrie is dead, okay? But here's the order of events, right? We, had a story of a young girl and her fiance, quote unquote, who were in a van traveling across the country, across these United States of America, looking at various sites and, van life hashtag. And, Gabby had wanted to start a YouTube channel. And so I believe there's like one video on their YouTube channel at the very beginning of this journey. And, basically the story was they traveled together. They ended up getting pulled over by police because of a fight that they saw. The police officers, decided to not arrest either one of them, send them on their way, yada, yada, yada. Between that time, Brian Laundrie had flew back home to Florida for a little bit to help his parents with something. That's the story. He flies back to, I think it was Utah, with Gabby Petito. Something happens. Brian Laundrie makes his way back to Florida with Gabby's van, by the way. It was her van. Doesn't speak to the police. Lloyd's up immediately. A couple of days later, he leaves the house, goes missing. The police are looking for him. And then we find out that Brian Laundrie's, they have found his parts of his remains, and he is dead now. Okay. And his parents were the ones that discovered like some materials, I think a backpack or some shit in the park where they found Brian Laundrie's body, right? So that's kind of a rough, but I will admit horrible recap of how we got here. But here's the thing. The specific details around Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie don't really matter as much to what I want to talk about here, which is what is with the smoke for Brian Laundrie's parents? Like, I've been reading tweets on Twitter, YouTube comments and videos, listening to podcasts about people having this big issue with the way Brian Laundrie's parents handled the investigation. And I have to say, there is nothing about the way they moved specifically in regards to their son, Brian, that I think is shocking or something that I myself would not do. So let me get this straight. Y'all really out here turning over y'all kids to the feds? Is this what we doing now? And look, are there a set of circumstances where it is kind of understandable that you would turn your own child over to the feds? Of course. If I found out my child was like a pedophile who had abused multiple children, I would cooperate. If I found out my child was a serial rapist, I would cooperate. But murder is different. And I'm going to explain why. You can easily take someone's life and not be kind of a horrible person, right? In this country, we have kind of manslaughter charges, murder charges. You can plead temporary insanity. There are terms like crimes of passion. And those terms exist because we understand that your actions can be dictated in, by ways in which normally you would not operate. And so if my son comes to me, from a trip, he comes, mom, dad, look, something terrible happened. Or let's say he confessed and said, I killed Gabby, right? So let's say Brian Laundrie's family is at home. They see the van pull up. They're thinking that Brian and Gabby, are together. Brian comes in the house and he tells his parents, I killed Gabby. I didn't mean to. I lost self-control just for a moment. I was really mad. She was swinging on me, hitting me. However he framed it. As a parent, if you know your child for most of their life has been a good person, they haven't really done too much in the world, they're not problematic, they don't have a history of being violent or abusive, you would go into protection mode. Because prison is not a place you ever want to be. Prison is I think we throw way too many people in prison in America. Way too many people. I believe jail should just be reserved for people that are a danger to society. I don't think we should be using jail as a place to send people simply for breaking the law. I get it. That makes me this weird, soft on crime dude. I gotcha. But I'm just explaining my personal politics. I don't think jail should be reserved for those purposes. I just don't. Because of how violent jail is. Because of the rape that takes place. The rape, the assaulting that goes on, the murder in jails. Because even amongst other countries, other Western countries, our jails are significantly worse than these other places. Our jails are significantly worse compared to these other places. Germany, France, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, like any place that you can think of that is modernized, their jails are actually humane. Our jails, on the other hand, are disgraceful, disgusting. So, as a parent, I can believe my child did something wrong and also not want to send them to the worst possible place on planet Earth, which is an American prison. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating. There are prisons worse than this, probably somewhere in the Middle East, whatever. But you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, I get it. How do y'all not get it? Because I get it. So, no, I wouldn't cooperate with the police, local or federal. I wouldn't. Now, would I do anything to put myself in danger? No, because even though that is my child, he is also an adult. And so I'm not going to lie for him. I'm not going to, obstruct evidence or do any of that goofy shit for my child, because I'm not going to jail just because you messed up. So I wouldn't assist in undermining the law, but I'm not helping the law either. And I don't understand how people don't understand, this is kind of how parents would act in any scenario. Or maybe I'm wrong, and you new parents out here are just offering up your children to the feds. To the feds. I don't understand it. So that's been frustrating for me. Something else that has been weird about this case is the implication that Brian Laundrie's parents planted evidence with, the recent discovery of the book bag and stuff. Because here's what they're saying, right? Apparently, the police, they had went through that park for like a couple of weeks now, where they ended up finding eventually Brian Laundrie's body. And so the parents decided out of the blue, I know this information because I was listening to Brian Laundrie's attorney being interviewed by, I forgot the exact news person, but it was a pretty interesting interview, right? And hearing her questions and trying to frame things a certain way, and hearing Brian Laundrie's attorney trying to make sure he doesn't do anything that could compromise him or his clients legally. But the parents decided, you know what, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna look for Brian Laundrie's body or stuff, or see what we can find by going on or checking places that we know outside of the camp, right? So the parents go out there. The lawyer calls the police to let them know, Brian Laundrie's parents, they are going to go out there to look for Brian Laundrie and to see if they can find any evidence. Just give you a heads up. Cool. So the police come and they, accompany the Laundrie family as they search for stuff that they can find. And apparently, within 30 minutes, Brian Laundrie's family found like I think it's called a dry bag. It's like a bag used to make sure that things don't get wet when you're traveling. They found that. They found, I think, a backpack as well within 30 minutes of walking, and eventually that led to the discovery of partial remains of Brian Laundrie. And so now people are saying that the parents planted evidence there to help Brian Laundrie get off. But here's the thing. Brian Laundrie is dead. The man is dead. If it were possible that he was alive, the police would have never said that they found the partial remains. They would have said, we have found teeth of Brian Laundrie, or we found an arm, right? You wouldn't assume that he's dead. You assume he's dead, and you call it partial remains because whatever the remains were, it is impossible for him to be alive while that part of him is out there. So, but once again, why would the Laundrie family, the Laundrie parents, just plant evidence there after all of this time? And I get it, coincidences are hard to believe, but if a coincidence was not a thing, we wouldn't have a word in the Webster Dictionary called coincidence. It means that from time to time, there are things that are truly a coincidence. And now you have people saying that they think the Laundrie family killed Brian Laundrie. Like, they took Brian Laundrie's life. Once again, ridiculous. Why? Because they helped Brian lawyer up when he got back to the house. And they also weren't cooperating with people for days, weeks. Why would they all of a sudden kill Brian Laundrie? Now, I suppose you could say, well, At that time, there was no ME report. And so once the report came back from the ME, and ME is short for medical examiner. Once the report came back from the ME and it was officially a homicide, maybe Brian told the parents that it was an accident, but now that they knew it was a homicide, out of some rage, they ran into the woods to kill Brian Laundrie when the entire law enforcement agency was looking for Brian Laundrie, and they will get away with that? You don't believe that. You don't believe that. You don't believe that. You don't believe that. You don't. I refuse to believe that you believe that. You don't believe it. We have to stop, man. Some of this stuff, in my opinion, is the effect of an entire culture being raised off of true crime, right? We are obsessed with true crime in this country. Obsessed with it. And look, I love it too. I'll be out here listening to what is it, Crime Junkies? I'll be out here listening to all of this shit. Listening to cases on my way to work, in the morning, setting up for work. My favorite pastime. But coincidences actually exist. And so a lot of this stuff needs to stop. Okay? This is not a true crime show. This is not a true crime movie. This is a case with real people. Right? We forget that. These are real people that existed, and now they no longer exist, and the case is over. Don't try to make a thing out of something that shouldn't be, don't try to make a thing out of nothing. This is a tragic case. There's going to be a bunch of documentaries and docuseries, within the next couple of years. I say within 5 years, either Netflix, HBO, or Hulu is going to come out with a docuseries about this, because the case is crazy. But Brian Laundrie's parents are not guilty of anything nefarious here. They're not. And my last thought on this whole thing is the way the media has acted in this case. And I apologize if you can hear my background. I have the window cracked, but there are kids in the background making noise. But look, the way the mainstream media has acted in this case, it helped remind you as to why the founders set up our legal process the way that they did. Because the media, they've been out here trying to get the Brian Laundrie family arrested from jump. Off of what evidence? No evidence. They've been out here trying to frame the Brian Laundrie family. They've been out here doing body language readings from cop body cam footage, which is irresponsible. Anyone with half of a brain will tell you it's irresponsible to try to make judgments off of how people should or would react and to assume guilt or innocence. That's irresponsible. And the fact that if Brian had lived, right, and he was facing trial, the media has framed this case already for us. So even if there wasn't any evidence, you could easily see him being kind of persecuted because the minds of every juror in America was tainted. And this is why we have due process. This is why it was important for Brian Laundrie to not be considered a person of interest just because he came back home and his girlfriend wasn't around. Even if you believe in your soul he killed the girl. You have to have laws. You have to have systems. You have to have a way to do things. And seeing a bunch of people throw that all out the window just because a cute white girl was first missing and then eventually was dead, that is disappointing. So those are my thoughts. Let me know if you agree, disagree. You can tweet me on Twitter or hit me up on Instagram at Philosophr. No Ian Philosopher, no space between the two, obviously. Send me an email. Send it to crewphilosopher@gmail.com. Once again, no Ian Philosopher. Let me know. Agree, disagree. I don't have no smoke for the Laundrie parents. No smoke at all. They were doing what parents do, which is protect their child. I get it. People feel for Gabby. I feel for Gabby. But the parents' behavior, that's kind of how anybody who loves their children is probably going to act 90% of the time. Outside of, like I said, the extreme cases of your child is like some serial murderer, serial rapist, or like pedophile that has assaulted a bunch of kids. Outside of those, specific cases, most parents are going to react the exact same way. And I will say, as they should, because you are a parent. So, thank you. I will see you guys when I see you. Until next time, deuces.